friends, welcome to Produce is People, the podcast with Nate Montgomery, the produce champion. I hope you enjoy the show. Make sure that you listen to it, make sure you share it, and make sure that you tell us what you think about it. Well, friends, Nate Montgomery, the produce champion, here on our Produce is People podcast. And we have a great treat here. We have Rich González with us. I met Rich probably about 12 years ago here in the Yakima Valley, and he's got a great story of experience, a wealth of experience in the produce industry. And recently, his last place was at Walmart, and now he's got some new projects that he's working on. We're looking forward to hear from him. So, Rich, welcome to the show.
Hey, Nate, thanks for having me. Good to be here for sure. It's my first podcast, so if I do things wrong, just put a big X on the screen, or hopefully you can edit it.
Here's the crazy part. I have found I always like to, I always want everything to be perfect and polished and everything. And what I found is in the social media world and the podcast world, unpolished and real gets you a lot farther anyway. So we're great. You're doing great. I'm really happy to have you here. Just tell us a little bit. I think you and I share some similar background. I grew up in Guadalajara. I think you grew up near there. Tell us a little bit about you, kind of your history and how you got into produce.
So I have to correct you. I did grow up in Mexico. I did live in Mexico for a little bit,
okay.
But I grew up in Northern California, and so I'm definitely a California guy for a while. But I've moved all over now at this point. But I've been pretty lucky in terms of my career with produce. I think it's kind of two phases. The first phase is really probably total, I think it's about 30 years, but I don't want to go too far because I try and, I hopefully I feel a little younger than that. But
you look a whole lot younger than that.
Good. Good living. So, about 30 years or so, and it's been split up. I mean, I spent probably the first 18 to 20 years on the supplier side. And I got to work a whole bunch of different jobs. I came out of Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. I went to it was wonderful citrus, and started my career kind of in a packing house, a lemon packing house in Oxnard. Worked there for 3 or 4 years, and then moved up to the Salinas Valley in the lettuce business, and that was mostly in the packaged salad. But again, got a lot of opportunities to do different things in companies like that. You see the business from kind of how a business works. And then I wanted to do sales, which was kind of an interesting experiment for me. So that's where we met. I was up in Yakima, Washington, working for L&M and Apple deal, and got a taste of how hard it is to be sales. I think early in my career, the production guy would tell me, Rich, or the sales guy, the experienced salesperson up in Visalia would say, Rich, production go home early and sales orders. And so throughout my career, that was my thinking, gosh, why can't they sell what we have? And, the salespeople were thinking, why can't they work longer? And I think those lessons to me was funny, because as I got into the sales side, it was definitely a different world. And then actually in Yakima, I ended up joining Walmart. So I spent about, 11 plus years with Walmart in different roles, but ultimately the head of the global produce sourcing team, which is, teams around the US and Latin America, and really driving the purchases for Walmart and Walmart International. So all the produce purchases for that. So big job, a lot of fun. But that job was a great perspective because I got to see the industry from an external perspective, right? I had the first 18 years as an internal supplier, and then I had the next 11 or 12 years as an external from a consumer perspective. Also, I had the ability to see kind of the rest of the world, from bananas to zucchini, right? I got to see a lot of different commodities. I'm deep in a few of them, but boy, I'm, the breadth of commodities across the world is super challenging. And for me, it was a great opportunity to see how it all kind of flows together in the supply chain. So 30 years, great career, loved it, saw a lot of different things. And now I'm just kind of working on things that I'm super passionate about: food waste, technology, and some other stuff that I think are really going to make a difference in produce to come.
Well, it sounds like we've got the makings of a couple of episodes in the future. So I'll put a little pin in that one for sure. So one of the things that we talk about, basically two themes that I have for my life and my involvement in produce are, number one, produce is life, and then produce is people. And I take a lot of lessons. In fact, there's been times where I've hashtag, produce is my life coach. I've learned a lot from produce, all different kinds of areas. Is there any lessons that you could share with us that you have learned over the last 20 to 30 years in produce that you say, man, this is a life lesson that I wouldn't have learned otherwise, or maybe it made it more vivid?
Yeah, I like the way you said that, life, and that too. I think that's an interesting way. I think about it in terms of the what and the how. Same idea, and people is the part of the how. But I would say on the what side of it, it's just being flexible. I mean, you have to have a lot of ways to move in produce, and flexibility isn't ad hoc. Flexibility isn't something you can just whip up. You can bring that on, but you have to prepare, and you have to have different ways to move. And I think Mother Nature has taught me that, it's not done until it's done in the consumer's hand. And so for me, I think the ability, I don't know that I ever would have spent as much time planning alternatives and scenario planning as I did with a career in produce, because it just forced me to have a lot of different ways to move. And I think the perishability makes it even more challenging, especially in things like lettuce. And understanding that you only have a few days for this product to get to the consumer. So the perishability and the flexibility that's required really made me think about planning. But all of that, nothing gets solved without people. And I think I've had the ability to work in Canada. I worked in Mexico. I obviously lived and worked in both of those countries, and then experimented or went and traveled to others for sure, working with teams there. I think what I've learned over the course of my career is that people are people, and they want to be treated regardless. Cultures may be different, but as a whole, as an essence, we think about, treating people with respect. We think about being honest and candid and helpful, and giving them an opportunity to grow. What I've learned throughout my career is that in general, you give people an opportunity and they will rise to the occasion. At the same time, you have to treat them, regardless of what culture or company or country you're in, treating them like you would treat your parents, in many ways, how I treated my parents anyways, is to me the thing that I've really taken away. Because produce is so challenging, I've had to rely on people, and I've had to learn how to really think about working with people over the course of my career.
Yeah. That's huge. Yeah. Well, that's why I say produce is people. You think of all of the hands, like you were talking, starting in lettuce or being involved in lettuce or whatever. All of the hands that, from the time that it goes into the ground to the time that it's harvested, goes into the box, it goes, that whole supply chain is incredible. And every time it's somebody's hands that are touching it, and then you want to buy a head of lettuce for 75 cents,
58 cents. And I think that it's just to expand a little more is I think people undervalued. They call the field labor non-specialized, or I had the term at the top of my head, but unskilled labor. But if you've ever really been in a field with people who are harvesting and working and growing and doing or packing, it's not. These are people who know what they're doing, and experience makes a huge difference here. So I think one of the things that always irritates me a little bit is to hear unskilled labor. It's there. Go pick it. Go climb a tree.
Go try to do it yourself.
Yeah, see how that lasts. And it's not to say that people aren't valuing. I just think it's a challenge, I think, to recognize the value of like you said, the many hands that help bring food to the table. It's a huge component.
Has there been any things that have caught you by surprise, or that you said, "Wow, I didn't expect that in the last few years"? I mean, it feels like produce has changed a lot. Some would complain that it has gotten worse. Some would say it's better. But there's a little bit of both, probably. But what's caught you by surprise that you say, "Wow, I didn't expect that"?
So obviously technology has changed a ton in the last 10 years, and it's exponentially changing. And I think the consolidation on the buyer and the grower side has definitely, changed things as well. But I think what surprised me most in the last 10 years, and, I probably made my early career on this fact that, I was probably one of the people who could speak Spanish and communicate with the people in the plant or the field and communicate with the management, right? And so I had some assets that helped me for sure, because today's world, it's a competitive world out there. So my point is I think the influx of talent, because of the attention food has got in the last, especially 3 years or so, especially post-pandemic or during the pandemic, I think we brought a lot of money and a lot of banks and a lot of equity into this, a lot of investment into the industry. And I think that's brought in a lot of talent. So I think the diversity of the talent is certainly different. I was on a call yesterday and there were 12 people on the call and I was one of 2 men. If I were to go back 30 years, it would have absolutely been the opposite. It would not have been the same. And it's not to say men or women are better. It's more just the diversity of thought and opinion really has, to me, helped us solve these problems. And I think that the entrance of the people in the last 5 to 10 years, the quality of the people that have come into the industry has really surprised me. I never would have called that. I mean, when I graduated college in the early, way back when I graduated college, everyone was going into the tech industry because it was, the sexy thing, and food was just not sexy. And I think over the last probably 10 years, food has done a great job of attracting and becoming, if I could use that word, sexy to a lot of people and a lot of talent. And I think that's good for the consumer. I think that's good for the industry too.
Yeah, we certainly, I mean, if you go to any trade show now and the amount of involvement from Silicon Valley, the amount of investment from Silicon Valley, is a testament to that. And like you said, it used to kind of feel like a good old boys club, and it's not that way anymore. I mean, it's much more diverse. I think when we started Produce Champion, that was one of the challenges. My wife owns a company, and she's a minority. My wife's Black, and she was like, well, will I fit in with it? And I'm like, you know what, maybe 10, 15 years ago we would have thought about it, but you'll be perfectly fine now. And something that I don't have to think about, but certainly was a part of her thought process. And she's looking forward to the next big show. She's going with us in October down to Anaheim, where we get to see a lot of the industry. It's kind of like a family reunion for produce people down there. So, but as we wrap up here, just a quick question for you. There's a lot of small, medium-sized growers that are looking at the world saying, should I stay in? Should I sell out? Should I get out? Should I keep going? And what are your insights? What do you see for the next, for the future of the produce industry?
That's a hard question. Obviously, everybody has different perspectives on it. I tend to think about it just from a consumer perspective. I think that the varieties and the access is going to be better for the consumers. I think, there'll be some gains in efficiency. So I think the consumers will continue to win. I think as, medicine and doctors become, and the aging population starts, necessitating the need for medical prescriptions or food prescriptions, alternative medicines, I think that's going to also help drive demand. So I think demand is good in the next 5 to 10 years for sure, and ultimately forever. I think the challenge with that will be, as resources become limited, labor, water, land, and the volatility of the weather for sure is playing a part in this. I think the risks, we're going to have to figure out how to make this supply chain system, the food system, a little more efficient. And to me, I think to manage and offset those risks or those costs will drive the product to a point where people can't afford to buy it. And we can't have that. We have to figure out how we manage costs in order to keep demand going, but at the same time, use our limited resources better. So I do think that there's going to be a continued push to indoor agriculture. I think technology and automation will help those things, will help improve that and push it forward. But I also think that genetics over the next probably 5 to 10 years have really got to make an improvement into understanding how do we facilitate the growing a product in places that maybe are non-traditional, but are more efficient than what we've been doing in the last 30 years. It doesn't mean open field is going away. It doesn't mean orchards. It'll be a long time before all that happens. But I do think there are parts of the supply chain that can become more efficient as we use technology to help and genetics to help kind of drive better products for the consumer. So I think it's a great future. I think
it's an exciting future. And again, like you said, it opens the door to a whole new group of people to come in, because it's not that we want something that's bigger or not that we want something that's brighter color. We want bigger, we want brighter color, we want more flavor, and we want at a price that we can afford, so that it's not just the few that live real close to it that can take advantage of it, but kind of democratizing produce.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And going back to the earlier question about, that surprise in the industry, the technology and the people that are coming in are going to help us be able to solve some of these issues. So super excited about, I think we're getting the right people behind us. We got the right technologies now. It's a matter of incorporating it to make the system a little more efficient than what it is today.
Always just a constant improvement, right?
Always. That's produce, though, isn't it?
Well, cool. Yeah, no kidding. Well, Rich, I really appreciate your time. This is just a treat to be able to talk like this. We run into each other at Starbucks a couple of times, at the soccer fields when our kids were playing soccer, and now to make it more formal. I'm really excited about that, and I hope to have you on at some point in the future. I'd love to hear what you're going to be doing and what your plans are for the future, and maybe we'll reserve that for a future episode if you have time for us. Who knows? You might be too busy by then.
No. I love it. It's a great position to be in, to pick and choose. I love the projects I'm working on, food waste, things like that. So it's been a blast to get to meet and connect with people like you as well too. Super fun and challenging, and appreciate the opportunity for sure.
Well, let's do it again. It's good talking to you. Thank you so much. Folks, do us a favor. If you like it, make sure you like this podcast for us. Please share it. I always say in social media, as in produce, if you like it, share it. And the more we can get the word out there, the more we can talk. Hopefully you find this useful for how you shop at your local grocery store. If you're a buyer at any kind of retail or food service, that you find this information useful. And for growers, we really appreciate what you do. Keep up the good work.
So that's the show, folks. Make sure that you like it, make sure that you share it, and follow us on LinkedIn, on TikTok, on Facebook, on Instagram. We're in all the socials, even on YouTube. Make sure you follow us, share it, and like it.